We have a brief gift for Father, and that's just 3 quick tributes by friends who represent the vast group here. And we'll certainly continue on the great tributes and memories and celebrations as we go into the commons afterwards. But for right now, 3 men are going to come up and just share their viewpoints and their way of serving and being with Father, and thank him on behalf of all of us for the great way. First, Eddie Halamay from 76, and then Tom Cardone, our former alumni director from 69, and finally Ed Plashol, who was ministered with Father in Labra for so many years. So please welcome Mr. Eddie Halamay.
It's quite overwhelming to see everybody here. Show their love for God. They asked me to speak, and I wasn't sure what I was going to say. And I thought about it, and I said, you know, whatever comes out of my heart. I've been friends with Jim since the fall of '72. I was a freshman. And forgive me if I'm a bit emotional, but it's been a long journey for both of us. I guess you can read that both. I've had many role models in my life, and I really want to say one thing, that I'm blessed to have parents like I do, who gave me the opportunity to come to this great school. I love this chapel. I love this school more than I could ever explain. It's done so much for me over the years. I've had so many role models in my life, like all of you have, and many of them from this school right here. I've had great people like Joe Dennis, who was our principal, our coach, our teacher, our disciplinarian, and thank God he graciously let me graduate from the school. Not him, I might not be. There was Coach Bill Rico, as many of you knew, who taught me what it was to be a Walsh warrior and have Walsh pride. That man, after I graduated, spent the next 40 years making sure that I was okay, that I was taken care of in some way. Excuse me. We also had alums like Mike Mack, class of '71. As a freshman, he had my back, and today he still has my back. Those are people that I can count on every single day of my life. I was fortunate enough that my 4 years here at Walsh Jesuit to have 4 wonderful theology teachers. Father Tom Ryan, TR, not sure if he's here or not, great man, did a lot for us. He celebrated my wedding with us. I'll never forget the guy for sure, he did a lot for us. Of course, we had Father Clem Metzger. I'm sure some of you remember him. If you were a freshman walking by his door between classes, he would look at you and call you a little wretch, and you'll never make it in my class, he said. But of course, we all made it to sophomore year, and he was a wonderful example of what a Jesuit should be. There was Father Pat Hussey, that his passion for the Blessed Virgin Mary and his commitment to political and social issues were well known, as he documented all those for slideshows and the music of the times, like Bridge Over Troubled Water and Here Comes the Sun by the Beatles. And every time I hear Here Comes the Sun and George Harrison and the Beatles, I think of this chapel and Walsh Jesuit, and I've had that memory my whole life. Great role models. As a freshman, I meet Jim King. Okay, what can I say about Jim King? Tall, quiet, gentle giant, man who listens, man who guides you, say the right things. He was always there for you. My years at Walsh were short. At least I had 4 of them. I knew Father King pretty well those years, but our relationship grew over the years. We continued to see each other for the last 40 years, and we've been through many, many good times. A couple of the things that we have done in the past. We did a lot of things, for example. We did parties together. We did alumni events. We did many dinners. We did many weddings. I'll miss our retreats more than anything, Jim. The retreats we had in that area. The reconciliation. Hours. I'm serious. There were hours sometimes. One thing for sure, we definitely experienced some very sad multiple times together through family situations, people passing on, but somehow that bonded us all together. closer because of that. We're family. And Walsh Jesuit to me is about family. And I look at everybody here today and I just feel the outpour of love for Jim, for everybody else here. And that's what's so great about this school. And Jim, you're a big part of that. You show by example, and being a big impact in our lives. One thing for sure, Jim always worked under the radar. He was always available for the poor, for the sick, for the shut-in. He was available for anybody who needed him. He was a quiet man. He never asked for anything. He was always there for you. And that means a lot to me. And that's what I'm talking about, role models. People who can do things without really making a big deal about it. And it didn't happen overnight. It took 42 years for me to become who we are today. And we're thankful for that. That being said, usually I'm not short on words, but today I am. I just want to say that Jim, you're a true friend, you're a true Jesuit. You're a man for others. I know you don't like very long stuff. I know one thing for sure, God is pleased with Jim King. Without a doubt, God is very pleased for what he's done. But you know, Jim, you're more than a friend to us. You're a family. And because of that, Jim, I will be grateful for our children.
Allow your minds to drift back in time for just a moment. Try and recall the circumstances around your first meeting with Jim King. Could you have guessed then that Father would become such a positive influence in your life? Victorian poet Christina Rossetti addresses this common experience of first meetings shared by us all at one time or another in our life in her poem entitled The First Day. She says, I wish I could remember the first day, the first hour, the first moment of your meeting me. If only I could recollect it. Such a day of days. At the time, it seemed to mean so little. But now it means so much. It was 48 years ago that I met Jim King as a freshman, and I had no idea then that he would become such an important influence in my life. My first encounter, freshman theology, 1965. And on our first meeting, Father took the lead by extending his helping hand. Over the next 4 years, he, along with the pioneering staff, allowed me and fellow classmates the opportunity to nurture, to grow, and eventually represent Walsh Jesuit as the first graduating class in 1969, lighting our paths with a sense of paternal caring. That very next year, 1970, Father organized the very first alumni gathering. It was a simple evening in the Commons, pizza, refreshments, but most importantly, a chance for us to come home. And Jim took the lead. Returning to Walsh Jesuit in 1983 as a teacher, you guessed it, one of the first individuals to greet me was Jim King. What a joy for me in sharing the next 30 years together, 20 as teachers and 10 in the alumni office. And once again, he often took the lead. On a personal and family level, leading the way was Father Jim as he taught my brothers and my children, celebrated the 50th wedding anniversary of my parents with a Mass for Mom, Dad, and our entire family in my home, visited my mother when she took ill, was the principal celebrant at her funeral in this very chapel, and celebrated with Donna and myself at the wedding of our daughter. Yes, Father King has been a major influence and a source of strength in my life. But now, my friends, picture yourself and your family. Drift back to your first day. Allow your Jim King story to unfold. That, my friends, is why you're here this evening. No doubt, woven into the very fabric of your story is Jim King, somewhere leading the way. But what else is it about our dear friend that makes him so special, so unique, so Father King? And not only for us here, present this evening, but especially for the alumni of Walsh Jesuit. Calling upon literature once more for a parallel, the Romantic poet William Wordsworth captured the uniqueness of a very famous theologian ahead of his time, Mr. John Milton, an individual that I contend shares similar qualities to our Father King. In his poem entitled London in 1802, Wordsworth focuses on Milton's humility. Although you wouldn't sense that tonight. And to paraphrase the poet's words, he says, "Your soul, Jim King, is like a star that dwells apart from the others. Your voice is like the sea, majestic and free. You travel on life's common way in cheerful godliness, and yet thy heart, the lowliest duties on herself you lay. A humble approach to ministry. How refreshing. How Christ-like. A man who rolls up his sleeves, steps out into the community, and comforts those in need." In working with Father for 10 years in the alumni office, I was privileged to witness some of the following. His willingness to travel to various alumni gatherings in Ohio, around the country, and here at school to renew old friendships, while always promoting the message of welcome home. Performing the sacraments of baptism and marriage for hundreds of our alumni and their children. Attending to our spiritual life through the celebration of liturgies and the organizing of the annual alumni retreats. Continuing the work we began as students in the service of others by developing local and national service trips. Counseling those dealing with loss, sorrow, and the major changes within our lives. Visiting the sick in their homes, hospitals, and hospice facilities. One particular incident that I must mention that comes to mind. In the fall of 1998, one of our students was involved in a horrific accident, which has left him incapacitated to this day. For the past 15 years, Father regularly travels to his home and offers Mass for his family and for our brother alone. He has religiously attended the calling hours of our parents, our families, and our friends in the Walsh Jesuit community, and has laid to rest so many of our dearly departed. The only time that I have ever heard Jim King raise his voice in disgust or speak ill of a perpetrator is when he witnessed an injustice directed toward others. Father King, I hope you realize how much of an impact you have made on this community, especially on the graduates of our beloved alma mater. Could I please ask at this time all the men and women who have graduated from Walsh Jesuit here in the chapel today to please stand and remain standing for a few moments. Before you stands but a handful of the nearly 8,000 men and women that you have nurtured throughout your years at Walsh Jesuit. The fruits of your labor, your children, your legacy. Your family. thankful for the patience, guidance, and the love that you have shared with us over the past 5 decades. Your gentle hand has taught us to be stronger men and women of faith, more loving children to our parents, more attentive as spouses, partners, and parents to our loved ones, and less judgmental to those around us. We thank you, Jim, for the greatest gift you can give a person, the awareness that justice is the right of all human beings. You and the other founders of Walsh Jesuit have laid the foundation for us to build upon. In all of us, there is now a part of you, and we will strive to be men and women of compassion and caring, always with you in our hearts. Brother and sister along, please be seated. It is truly an honor to share and speak on behalf of the Walsh Jesuit graduates, and Father Jim and myself, for the alumni community, for those who work with their students on a daily basis, and for everyone in this chapel. This evening, please know that when I say we are all better men and women for having known and been loved by you. Shalom. Shalom.
Mr. Earl said, I'm Ed Plashol, and I've had the honor to work with Father King. I think it's for 9 years now. And first thing I'd like to do is ask Father White to make sure you push his watch up. You know, that's twice during Mr. Cardone's talk, he looked at his watch twice. So now, he was very anal about timing things, so if you just push your watch up. No, it's a privilege and honor to be here to speak for a few minutes about Father King. It was with Jim's support and leadership that the LABRA program was started here at Walsh Jesuit. Monday will be our 378th straight Monday of going out into the streets of Akron. 378. We're into our 8th year. Some Mondays, not just during the season, but every single Monday. It's the only program, if you think about it, at Walsh Jesuit that is year-round. And it's year-round. And those of you that don't know about the LABRA program, it is simply a ministry to the poor on the streets. We gather here, we make food, we have a reflection in the chapel, and we go to where our friends are. We go to where our family lives, and we spend time with them. And we give them food, but more importantly, we give them our friendship. And I want to thank Jim so much for your leadership and support in making that happen. But I think as all of you know, that's just one of the few things that he's done and touched here that Mr. Cardone, that Eddie, that Mr. Erdl, and everyone else has talked about. The Peter Morin Center, the Hunger Center, the Catholic Worker, Justice League. Those all have Jim King's fingerprints on them. That's Jim. That's Jim. So thank you for all that. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. All your friends are here. Well, I guess some aren't, right? A couple. But a few of your friends did get together and asked me to share a few little gifts with you. Always got to have a yellow flower, right? And actually, Jim, many of you may know, is Susie and Bobby both said, what could we do? And I said, find a yellow flower. So they gave us a couple dollars to give you a yellow flower. Remembrance of you. Susie and Bobby are two of Jim's favorite people to live on the streets that we've seen every single week. Mr. Erdl mentioned that you've been on somewhat of a farewell tour to most of the fine, outstanding restaurants in found out that you've not been able to visit your favorite one just yet. So with the help of Mr. Plange and Mr. Brown, Swenson's. Besides his favorite color being yellow, what's the favorite condiment that needs to go on everything that you have at home?
Mustard.
Yellow mustard? Everything goes better with mustard, right, Jim? Your own jar of mustard. We've also pulled together directions to 7477 Hubbard Avenue in Middleton, Wisconsin. What's that the home of, Jim?
Mustard Club.
The National Mustard Museum. We've also been able to secure a lifetime free pass for Jim. It's free every day, but he doesn't know. One of the things when we get together in the kitchen to prepare is we make sandwiches, and they become known as the King James sandwich, right? And it's a world famous sandwich. It's got like 2 pieces of white bread, a very healthy slice of bologna, a healthier slice of cheese, and of course, mustard. Late on Friday, we got the results in from the audit firm of Lange, Fraser, and Brown, and we've audited that through those 378 weeks, you have personally made 20,790 King James sandwiches. And we pulled off the list the last one that was ever made. One of Jim's favorite things, I used to think he was really committed to the Labra program, but then I also realized that became his pregame meal. One of the other things that he loves is, of course, barbecue chips. And he, of course, would tell me by putting the chips in the bags that you can't eat what you can't take out. You've got to try everything there, right? So we have now figured out that Jim has tasted 1,134 bags of chips that we have for his own self, his own original barbecue chips from Snyder's. Soup is a key staple that we take out every single week. Even in the summertime, the men and the women on the street love our soup. And most recently, we've had the soup lady, Mrs. Debbie Orr, bake us soup every week, nearly every week. And the weeks we don't, it's that college staple of ramen. And when they don't see Mrs. Orr coming out, or they want to know if the soup lady's been here, they're a little disappointed. But one of the things that's happened through every one of those 378 weeks is Father King has always had to test or try the soup, because he wanted to make sure that Mrs. Orr, anyone else that made it, or the students, didn't poison that soup. God forbid that someone on the street should get sick. So Mrs. Orr has provided a commemorative cup, autographed it, and as most of you also may know, Jim does not believe you should eat soup with a spoon. He always encourages us to get a fork. So he now has his commemorative soup cup from Labra. A couple somewhat serious things, though, too. As you'll find out on Labra, one of our favorite stops is St. Bernard's down in Akron. And for the entire, that was the first place that we met people, and we still see people there today. Even as they're tearing down the school there, that some of you may know, they still meet us there. And it's a place where people have slept, people have lived, and people come from the different camps across the city there to meet us. So earlier today, we went down to St. Bernard's and they started the destruction of certain areas. We were able to borrow a brick from St. Bernard's, and we put St. Bernard's on it, and we put today's date, because that is where I saw Jim work his miracles, his comfort, his talking to the people there on the steps. And it's going to be a sad day when that building goes, not just because the building goes, but that's where our program started, Jim. And that's where we've met most of our friends and most of our people. So please keep this as you go, as a remembrance of what we do every Monday, and we do because of you. last thing I'd like to give to Jim is a railroad spike. Those of you that go out on Labra know that, or if you talk to your children have gone on, but many of our friends live in and around the railroad tracks. They live in camps there, they live underneath the trees, because how many people go walking up and down railroad tracks, right? It's a place of seclusion for them. And this railroad spike has sort of become a symbol for us at Labra. It reminds us of all the men and women that we've met over the years. But I think also, if you think about our faith as Catholics, it also reminds us of those spikes that went through the hands and the feet of Jesus, right? And I think it means for us what he wants us to do on Labra, to do the work that Jesus came down to do, to take care of the poor, to look after the others. He came here to make our lives better. So this railroad spike has always served for any of us that have gone on Labra, any of the Labra programs nationwide. And Jim, we want to have you this as a memory for all our fine visits we've had along the railroad tracks in the city of Akron. Well, these are some of the things that Jim loves. I think we would all agree. If you really look at his three loves, they come down to this place, Walsh Jesuit, they come down to the city of Akron, and they come down to the poor. And I don't think I've seen anyone ever meld their three passions into what they do every single day. We all have passions, we all have desires, we all have interests. Many times we go three separate ways. He has melded those together. You've already heard that nearly every social concerns program here at Walsh Jesuit has his fingerprints on it. But what's neat to me about it is it's not just yeah, I'm Jim King, I think we should start this program, let's have somebody do it. I think it would be great. It's, yeah, I'm Jim King, I think that's the right thing to do, and I'm going to get involved in it, and I'm going to participate in it. That's what sets him apart. That's what sets him apart from everybody else. Let me share with you a few of my King experiences. About 6 years ago, I had the pleasure of going with him to Honduras on one of the immersion trips. And one day, we traveled up to a mountaintop. And my Spanish is not real good, but it's Montaña de Luz. And I think it's Mountain of Light or Light of Mountain. And up on this mountaintop is a retreat. It's a campus. And this campus is simply for young children infected and affected by AIDS. And they initially sent all these children up there to live out the rest of their lives and to die. They actually had a morgue there. The good news is that through the medicine that the government provides to them, these children are living, and it's now becoming a vibrant community there. And it's one of the most peaceful places we visited, wasn't it, Jim? It's up on a mountain, and it's the calmest place ever. So they see Padre come in. They find out that we've got a priest. They see Padre, and they want to have a mass. And there, we find a concrete picnic table, if you remember that, Jim. And he has a chalice. We get a bottle of water. I think we actually had some host and whatever. And we had mass on this concrete table, looking out over the valley. And everybody from the staff and all the young children came out, infected by AIDS, came out. And instead of sitting as we are, the thing that amazed me most about that, and Jim, I actually got a picture of it here that I want to give to you, is imagine 5, 6, 7 of these young children on Jim, on the table, on the altar, looking into the chalice, looking at this book that he's reading. What is it that they were always looking at? And wondering, what is he saying in English there? It was one of the most unique, and there's Jim, Grandfather Jim, if you will, just sitting there as calm as can be, not looking at his watch. But it was the neatest picture to see these kids and to see their love for Padre. I will always remember that day. That was our bishop. Yeah. We meet many characters at Labra. One of them we met many years ago was a gentleman named Ron Pearson. Ron showed up every Monday night, somewhere down in the streets of Akron, sometimes at the old bus station, other street corners down by the Mayflower, sometimes by the library. And every Monday night he was there. And then one week we didn't see Ron, we said, okay, hopefully he's okay. The second week we didn't see Ron, And someone said, hey, did you hear? Ron died. Okay, you gotta be kidding me. Well, how did it happen? He fell off these steps and he died. And he's in the morgue. And nobody has claimed him. Nobody knows who his family is. And at that point, instead of saying, well, figure it out, Jim said, you got to figure this out. And through, I don't know if it was the use or abuse of the collar and the priest, we got some information, and we ended up contacting and finding out Ron Pearson's family. We found out he had a son who we hadn't seen in 15 or 20 years, hadn't talked to him. We connected everything together. They came, and they're like, what do we do? Jim's, we got to have a funeral. We had Ron Pearson's funeral in this chapel here. Students, the choir, I think we actually performed during the funeral. Students were pallbearers. Jim had the mass, and I think he shared a very liturgical, that's probably one of the most unique liturgical celebrations, right? We had a minister of another denomination up here with Jim. But it was, I think Jim would probably say that probably ranks as one of the top liturgical celebrations he's ever had. To celebrate appropriately the life of a man on the street. And what was interesting too, that man, we dressed him up and he had a Walsh Jesuit tie and a Walsh Jesuit pennant in his casket. One last thing I'll tell you about that is, we come to find out if his family was here, he would go see his sister in her home every Monday. And every Monday about 4 o'clock, he'd say, I gotta go. No matter what the summer, winter, no matter how cold it was, he said, I gotta go. I said, like, where are you gonna go? He says, I got an appointment. I got an appointment. You know where he was going? To see Jim and the students. To leave the comforts of his sister's home where he had food and he was doing his laundry, and he lived on the streets every night. But this program that Jim started was so important to that young man that he had to come and see us every single Monday to see us. That's the stuff that Mr. King has started. I mentioned St. Bernard's. I think all of us have ever been out. Seeing Jim sitting there comforting someone or just talking is a memory I think it's emblazoned in all of us. He's had confessions at St. Bernard's on the streets. He's led prayers when people come up and said, Father, can you just lead a prayer? How many times have you gone down the street and see people gather hands and saying a prayer on a street corner, across from the police station, across from the University of Akron, and there's Father Jim leading it. A couple of years ago, the Catholic Commission of Akron, or the Catholic Commission, I think, of Justice, honored Jim with the Man of the Year Award. For everything that you've heard about here, for everything we know he's done, and things we haven't talked about. And for these highfalutin events, they say, you're going to have a big table. Bring all your family and friends. We showed up. Mom and Pa from the streets, Kurt from the streets, Bobby. That's who he brought. His family, his friends, the people that meant the most to him. And boy, did they have a good time. They didn't sit on their hands like we did in the middle of Jim's talk. They weren't afraid to scream out, go Jim, right? Go Jim. You're the man, Jim. Everybody's later on said, oh my gosh, that's his family? But it was another example of Jim thinking about the others before himself. I've also heard that on every Kairos there's a reconciliation that goes on for our students. My understanding that for the penance many times, instead of the traditional one Hail Mary that you would get to say afterwards, Jim would actually talk to the students and ask them to pray for Bobby on the streets, for Bill on the streets, for Susie that she gets over her alcoholism, right? And I think once again, just not is he concerned about us as we share with him our sins and our sorrows, and he absolves us, but he says, think about other people. And he would tell them a story about Bobby, and our students do. And I think our men and women on the streets are better for that. So with everything I've shared with you, you can see that he truly lives out the corporal works of mercy that I think we all know. Feeding the hungry, giving drink to the thirsty, comforting the sick, caring for the homeless, burying the dead, visiting the imprisoned. He really embodies a man for others. He really embodies everything that we've learned in fine Jesuit institutions. And very much like Dorothy Day and Peter Morin, he lives a life of active love. A life of active love. Not words, but of active love. Every Monday before we go out in Labra, we're in the van and we're heading down to our first stop. We've got to cover some ground rules that Mr. Earl says we need to, right? Seatbelts on, no more than, how many in the van, Jim? 8. Never more than 8. No more than 8. Never has been more than 8 in the van at one time. But especially with the newbies and any first-timers, we always ask, you want to know what's going to happen? And their hands go up like this, yeah, we do. And those of you that have gone out before know the same answer. We can't tell you. We can't tell you because every week is different. Every week is different except for one thing we tell them. Sometime tonight, we can't tell you where, when, or how, you will feel the presence of Jesus. It may be when you're talking to somebody. It may be in that handshake that you give. It may be in the hug as you meet somebody, and a hug as you leave. But you're going to see and feel the presence of Jesus. So treat these men and women with the same respect, reverence, and dignity if you were Jesus himself. Do that. Now think about some of the things I just shared with you about Father King's actions. Tell me, are they that different than those that were done by a man who walked this earth 2,014 years ago? A man who was much more comfortable with the poor, with the marginalized, with the downtrodden, with the forgotten. A man who respected life. A man who was committed to justice and showed us the right way to do things through his actions. We not only believe we will feel the presence of Jesus at Labra, we see it in Father King. So I think our challenge here and opportunity going forward is this. I think we all need to come together and live in the light. We need to open our hearts like Jim does. We need to love tenderly like Jim has. We need to serve another just like Jim has taught us all. We need to walk humbly with God that he does every single day. We need to be hope for the hopeless. Because we're not only called to act with justice, I believe we're called to act, live, love, and be like Jim King. Shalom, my good friend. Shalom.
And Halamay, Cardone, and Ed Plashol. To lead us in our closing prayer, Campus Minister Lauren Frazier will now come forward. You need your yellow sheet of paper. It's the prayer at the bottom when she gets to that part.
Yes, some of you may have our leftover programs from our King rally yesterday. So we're just going to do a small prayer, and I ask that you join me and share your paper. The font was written for students with very good eyes and bright lips. Father King, you have shown us by your example how to live as a man for others, as a man with others. You have set the world on fire by setting our hearts on fire with your passionate love of us. You've done all things for the greater glory of God, finding God's presence in all things, all people, and in cherishing all gifts. By your presence in our lives, we have come to know God more easily and have learned how to make a return of that love. Because of you, we are able to choose what better leads to God's deepening life in our lives. Father King, thank you for teaching us to be generous,
for teaching us how to serve as Christ deserves, for giving without counting the cost, for promoting peace and enduring the suffering, for toiling without seeking rest. Thank you for laboring without reward. We ask for your blessing that you can continue to live us.
Please remain standing for the Walsh Jesuit Alma Mater. At the conclusion of the Alma Mater, we'll adjourn to the Commons for a reception coordinated by Bonnie Wino and Carol Bachman and the Mothers Club. Thank you for being with us.